Hi guys. In this video, we'll talk about tool calling or function calling in OpenAI. In the last video, we had built an AI agent from scratch using just LLM without using any tool calling or any framework as such. In this video, we'll build the exact same AI agent, but with using tool calling. So what exactly is tool calling? If you go to OpenAI tool calling, yeah, it's called function calling as well sometimes. They kind of deprecated the name function, but now they use tools everywhere. So fundamentally, what this tool calling is that when we call this completion API with a model and with messages, we can also provide additional tools. And additional tools meaning these are just descriptions of tools. So if we have like 3-4 tools, we can describe it, we can put it in a format that they want, and we can tell them, hey, LLM can respond, but it also has options to use these tools. And these tools are just descriptions. So in the response, what happens is till now we were looking at the content, we usually read the content of the response, but now it also has option to respond with tool calls rather than just content. So it can also respond saying that, hey, I want to use this tool with these input parameters because I want to fulfill the user query. So here they have given an example of what is the weather like in Paris today. And in tools, they have given like a description of this one tool. So they have only described one tool here. The name of this tool is Get Weather. And the description is like it gives the temperature given the location. And in the properties field, they have a property called location. So this is an input param that this function takes. Get weather is a function which takes in location as parameter. And this location is a string parameter. And the location is like the description for the location is city and country, example Bogota, Colombia, or so and so on. So we describe this function in this format, basically name, description, and parameters. Inside parameters, properties is something that is of our main interest. And then there is required field. So location is a required parameter. We have to pass in location to get the weather. Yeah, so these are just fields, how we can define a tool. Now once we define a tool and put it in this format, we can just create a list. So this is list of tools basically. This is just one tool, and we can provide like many such tools in the list. And we can pass in these list of tools that it can use. So it's optional. It's not that, it does not mean that it always has to use these tools. There are like other parameters to choose tools as well, like specific tools, and force it to use tools, etc. We'll see that a little later, but this right now it's like optional, or you can say automatic. Like if it wants to use a tool, it can. If it doesn't, it may decide not to use a tool and just respond just like normal prompts as well. But if it decides to respond with tool, this is where you should take the response from, not the content like how we have been taking so far. So when we read this tool call, it looks something like this. It's like the name of the function that it wants to call, the name of the tool that it wants to use, and the argument. So here, since we asked for Paris, it's saying a location as Paris, France, and the name of the tool is Get Weather, right? So this is basically how it is. Like now you can imagine like how the flow would be like to build an AI agent. So the React loop that we wrote in the last video, in the last tutorial, that would boil down to just passing in tool descriptions here. Like last video, rather than parsing out action from the response, we'll parse out just these tool calls. If tool calls is present, we'll get this output, and we'll actually call this function with these input params. We'll get the response, and we'll send the response back in the message to the prompt to decide what to do next. Yeah, so I'll leave this to you. You can like go read this further, but what we'll actually do is let's build the same agent that we built in last video, the e-commerce chatbot, using this tool call. So let's just first import everything. Let's also initialize the OpenAI client, and I'll also paste the tools that we had. So these are like exact same tools that we used in last video. So if you haven't watched the last video, please go watch that first, so that you know what is happening. These are like 4 tools that we'll give our agent. Search product. So given a product query, it can search for any product and return like top three products from Amazon. It can add products to cart based on product ID and quantity. It can also summarize a cart, and it can actually make a purchase given a payment method. And this generate payment link is just a util function, just to show you that there can be some functions which we don't give to agent as well. Next, let's create a map as well. So this also was done in the last video. Like when we actually get the response saying, hey, I want to call this tool. So this should actually map to this is the function tool. This is the key or the string of the function that we want to call. So this is just a map, you can say, like what all actions our agent can perform. This search product maps to this function actually, right? So whenever we see search product, we'll end up calling this function. Now, like I showed you the tools description list that we saw on this page, there is a defining functions section here. You need to log in, but basically when you generate, you can pass in your functions and it gives you the description automatically. So I just did that, and I created like these descriptions for each one of these tools that we have, so that we can pass it to the tool call. So this is for the search product. It takes in product query, and even that is a string, the query for which we want to search for products. And this description is search products on Amazon based on a query. So similarly, we have add to cart, adds product to shopping cart. And then it has like 2 properties, product ID and quantity. Quantity is a number here, the quantity of product to add to the cart. And then we have summarize cart. It does not take in any parameters. So this properties is empty, but it returns the content of the cart. And then there is buy product. So processes to purchase of a product using the specified payment method. And then we take in payment method. Now payment method is enum. So we specify like enum and all the possible enum values as well. So that's it. Like we have defined basically the description of these tools, which we can pass in through our LLM. Let's do a test run now that we have defined our tools. So what we'll do is let's actually call this with an example query and see how this works. So we are passing in the model as 4o. You can also pass in 4 and all other models. Even they support tool calling. And the messages we are passing as user. And this is the query that I've written. I wanted a bowl for my dog, right? And we are passing in all the tools that are available to it. So it has a option to use these tools if it wants to. So when we run this, let's see the result that it generated. So finish reason is stop. So it didn't really use a tool. Like finish reason will be tool call if it wants to use a tool. So here, if you want to see the exact content, we can go in like. So if we look through the content, this is the normal way. If it doesn't want to call any tool, this is where the content would be. Could you please provide more details about the bowl you're looking for? For example, are you interested in particular size, material, stainless steel, plastic? Okay, so it's asking like more details rather than going ahead and using a tool. So maybe this was not a very good query. Maybe I can rephrase it like, yeah, let's rephrase it saying like I want to search. Let's see if then it considers using tool or not. Great. So now finish reason is tool call. So if you see the content now, content will be none, basically nothing. But rather than going into content, if we see like tool call, so if you see here somewhere, yeah, here it says tool calls. So we can print out those things. Great. So here you can see it's saying like it wants to call search product. You can see the name is search product. And the input arguments it wants is like dog bowl. So based on this finish reason, we can see if it is tool calls or not. If it is tool calls, we use this output, and if it is not tool calls, we can use content as usual, right? So this is how it works, and this is what we'll use to build an agent now. So similar to the last video, we had a React loop. Now we'll have like a kind of like a similar loop, but a simplified one. Let's call it agent loop here. We get the question messages. So this question messages would contain like a user message with content as the actual query. So this is a list of object, and there will be one object. Eventually we'll also add like more history to it, like what all things were talked about and now what the query is, so that it also has all the context of how to respond and so on. So we are starting with this agent loop messages. We'll initialize with using the input question messages that are there. And what we'll do is first we'll pass it through the model itself. Here you can see I've added like a system message as well along with this agent loop message. I have not added it to the agent loop message just to keep it like separate. But every time we pass this through an LLM, we add this one system message which says like, if no input arguments are specified by the user, ask user, do not assume, right? So I'm hoping like, so while I was testing and building this off the record, I realized like it was assuming like, let's say I asked it to add products to the cart. It was assuming the quantity and not asking me. I just added this one single extra system message. Hopefully it works this time as well. Yeah, and then simply we are passing in tools like before. And we are getting this result. So this is where we make the choice whether we are going to call the tool, we are actually going to execute the tool, or just return the response. Because our LLM decides not to use the tool, that means we have to come out of the loop. We'll check for finish reason. If it is tool calls, we'll get the so one thing is we'll actually append the response that we got from this LLM to our agent loop messages history. So this agent loop message is kind of like what exactly happened. So we'll first add it to the message saying, hey, our LLM asked us to perform a tool action. So we'll get that message and we'll append it here. And then we'll go in the results and like tool calls. We'll read the function name and the input args. So this piece of code was again taken by this doc itself. Yeah, it was in the handling function calls section. So they had given this loop. So sometimes it might not be true that it always asks you to run one tool. It can ask you to run multiple tools in parallel as well. So these can have like multiple tool calls. So that's why we loop through these tool calls and ask it to run all the tools that it wants to run. It will take like name and args, and then these two lines are taken directly from the last video. So if these action that it wants to perform is not present in our dictionary, this is the known actions dictionary if you remember. So these are the all known actions that our agent has. If it's not there, then we raise an exception. Hopefully we never come across this error. But LLMs being LLMs, it sometimes hallucinates and it may ask you to perform an action which we never described it to. Once we get the action and args, we add a logger, simple logger saying that, hey, we are calling this tool now with these inputs. And we'll actually go ahead and call those. So known actions will take in actions. And these args are now a dictionary. If you remember from here, this is like a keyword argument, like it has like key and value. So that's why we put 2 asterisks, unlike the previous video where we used only 1. And then when we get the result of these function call, when we actually call the function and execute, we'll also log the response here so that we know that this function was called with this input, which returned this result, right? So this is just a logger statement. And then whatever response we get, we'll again add it to the agent loop messages as well. So this is basically like, hey, you asked us to run this tool, and this is the observation. And again, this is something like specific that OpenAI wants. It wants us to add a message using this role as tool. And then we'll also have to append this tool call ID in this. And then the content is the actual observation of this tool. So this was also taken from this itself. So here, if you can see, it wants us to append it this way. That's just how OpenAI wants. We'll do it that way so that it works. That's all. And then this is about running the tool. If it doesn't want to run any tool, we'll get the response using content, and we'll append that result as assistant to this loop message history, and we'll return everything. So result we'll return, so that result is the actual answer, assuming is the answer because it didn't want to call any tools now. Else if it reaches a maximum limit, which is maximum number of turns is like 5 for now, then we'll just return the result and loop. So hopefully this is clear. Like it's somewhat similar to what we have in the last video for React loop, but it's more concise. Like we don't have to write the prompt, parse the prompt response and so on, but everything is done by the LLM model itself. Great. So now that this is done, we'll just write a simple chat function like before, and this time I'm writing it along with the history. So we have this empty message list, which is like our actual chatbot history list, and then we'll append the query here, user query, and we'll send the messages to the agent loop. We'll get the response back, and we'll append messages with the loop history again, so that for next query it has all the context of what happened previously in the previous agent loop as well. So yeah, this is done, and we can actually start calling in our chatbot now. Yeah, this example looks a little lame now. Maybe something else we need to buy now. I want to buy a watch actually. Yeah, let's run this and see how it works. Okay, so it decided not to use any tool again. I don't know why, but it is what it is. Could you please provide more details what you're looking for? Brand, style, price range. It's asking more details. God knows why it could have just used the tool and searched for watch. A wristwatch, gold in color maybe. Hopefully now it uses tool. I don't know. Yeah. So it's using search product with this input, gold wristwatch. And this is the observation that we got. So these are like list of 3 products. You can refer to the last video if you want to know more about this response of 3 products, how we get it, like using Rapid API and so on. It was discussed in good detail in the last video. This is where we come out of the agent loop. So if you see the way we have written the chat function, these are just logs for us. This is the final response which we print, which actual users will see. So this is the actual response. So it takes in these 3 response observations, and it properly like structures it so that it becomes like readable. So this is the first product. Let's actually go to the page. It is a gold wristwatch, pretty amazing. So now it's asking us like which one would we like to add to the cart. I didn't quite like the first one, so maybe I'll go with third one even without looking at it. So let's see what it does. Okay, it did call add to cart, but again here it assumed the quantity for some reason, even after us putting the system message, which is sad, but okay, whatever it is. So if you see, it's adding the B0CFDK. This is the product ID. Let's verify once. B0CFDK. This is for the women's water. Oh, it's a women's wristwatch. Okay, okay. Maybe it's for my sister or girlfriend or something. Okay. So it did get the ID properly. It did assume the quantity, which is sad, but it is fine for now, I guess. So we have this product added to our cart. Let's maybe check out. Okay, great. So at least it's asking us which payment method. It didn't use any tool, but it has information, I guess. So it's asking us which payment method we want to use. Let's do something like debit card, because we always buy gifts for our girlfriend using debit card. Okay, great. So it's calling buy product with debit card as payment method, and then it executes the actual function, and it gets this response, which is fine. It's a dummy function. And then it says like, hey, successfully processed. Here's the link to view your order details and track the shipment. Okay, I don't know if we'll able to give that shipment details there or not, but yeah. So it's basically done its job. Let's try one complex query as well, just like before. Reinitialize the messages. Let's also empty the cart, so we don't have anything in our cart now, and even a message history. So we are kind of like starting fresh with a new chat. Yeah, so this is the complex query. It might not be very complex, but I want to buy two umbrellas with cash. Let's see what it does. Hopefully it uses oh wow. It decides not to use any tool and it's asking me more about which umbrella I want, which is pretty sad. It's funny how it's asking me the brand of umbrella but doesn't care to ask me like how many products I want to add to the cart. Okay, great. So now it's uh, using the search product. It got the umbrellas, and now here it's calling this umbrella with two. And once it's done adding to the cart, it is calling buy product with cash on delivery, which is fine. So it's confirming us this is the final response. Your order for two Sai compact travel umbrellas has been placed using cash on delivery. You should receive a confirmation email shortly. Great, like this works. So if you realize like there were some issues here, sometimes it doesn't call tools, sometimes it assumes sorry, not here, here sometimes it assumes like quantities and so on. This could be difficult to debug since it's embedded within the language model itself. That's why it's preferable to use the previous method, where we do everything from scratch, so that we have like more hold of things of what to debug and where to debug. But here we mostly have like the system message at the max, and maybe this would work, this would not work, who knows. But yeah, this is how you use function calling or tool calling within OpenAI APIs. A lot of these foundational LLM models are now supporting tool calls. So even open source models like Llama and so on, they do have functionality for tool calling, and you can explore these options as well. One more thing I want you to know about these tool calls is when we give this tool description to this request, it internally it does take all those description and put it through prompt itself. So it creates a prompt with the description, just like how we create a React prompt. So your input tokens count may depend on these description and how many tools you have. So you can be you can be paying money accordingly. So you can decide to keep it less or more, like however you want. We can also quickly go through these additional configs that they have. So there is also this tool choice parameter. So basically here what they are saying, with the tools you can also put in tool choice equals auto or something like that. So auto is by default is what they are saying. Auto is default, which kind of like there is this option of calling either no tools, one or multiple functions as well. So this is what we were working with. It's like optional. It can be required. So tool choice can be required, meaning you cannot say like I don't want to use any tool. You will definitely have to use tool for every single request. So this is also something that you can explore if you want. And then there is force function, where you can specify the exact function you want to call every single time, irrespective of the query. So you can give it like the name of the function. So here they have given example of schedule event, and schedule event will be called like every time. Like this is something, the forced function calling is something that people use to get structured output as well. So knowing that if you see here, the arguments are like coming in JSON. So you can describe, basically you can describe a task here rather than function. And in properties you can describe like, hey, I don't want payment method. Payment method can be like sentiment, and then enum can be positive, neutral, negative. And then in the system message you can write something like, hey, what is the sentiment here, give it in this format. And you can get the JSON saying sentiment, whatever value it is like. So this is how you can and of course, like when you define that function, you will force call that function. So in tool choice you will force call sentiment always, so that you have built a sentiment extractor now, which gives you like structured output. So it does work sometimes. Sometimes it also fails to give JSON. You should always keep that in mind. It happens very rarely, but it does happen. Yeah, that is like force function calling. And then there is this parallel function calling option. You can set it to false if you want, so that you only get like one tool at a time. Then there is this strict mode. Setting strict to 2 will ensure function calls reliably adhere to the function schema instead of being best efforts. So they recommend always enabling strict mode. In our case, like strict was true. If you remember in the tool description, we have this strict true. So this is what this means. Like you can maybe read about this more. I don't want to go into much detail, but yeah, they are saying like additional parameters must be set to false for each object in this in the parameters. So additional properties would be set to false if strict is true, and then all fields of properties must be marked as required. So these are some things that they have for strict. You can read through this more if you want to dwell into it. There is a streaming option as well. I leave this up to you to go through it and see if it is useful for you in any way. But yeah, this is how we use tool calling or function calling in OpenAI by passing in tools and getting the tool calls from the LLM itself. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, guys. Consider liking and subscribing. I'll give my LinkedIn as well in the description if you would like to connect. Thanks, bye.